My soul is a magnifying glass for God. My spirit is a joy machine working overtime for God, my liberator. It's like he's only thinking of me. It's like he's only focused on me, his worker, his menial task co-worker. From here on in, history will mark me down as the happy Mrs. Happy of Happyville, for the potent God has worked incredible things for me. He's purity itself. He's outstanding. The way he gives out the slack for the young, the middle-aged, the old, all the generations, all the nations for respecting him. The way he waves his hand and the draft blows the arrogant off the scene for neglecting him. The way he pulls thrones from under the rear ends of kings, and the way he escorts the modest into high-profile things. The way he nourishes the poor, those wasting away with food that gives life. The way he shows the rich the door, how he waves the rich away from the buffet of life. The way he's always been with Israel, giving out so much slack from today right back to Abraham and his boys, right down to now, right down to ever and Father, the way he said he would to our fathers, the way he always said he would to our fathers. Well, it's laid out as a study Bible, so you've got the paraphrase, verse for verse, Bible, Gospel. Then you've got the footnotes here, which give you comments and provocative questions to get you thinking. Then you've also got satirical asides at right angles, where it gives you a way of getting out. When it's all getting a bit challenging, you've got a way of getting out. And then occasionally, all the way through, you've got an interview with someone who met Jesus. And it's done as a press interview and making out, well, yeah, these people had to deal with that. And they had to wrestle with, who is he? And this is my way of exploring that, just using the imagination. The satirical sidebar comments are designed to contrast or to challenge what the gospel is saying. And the Sermon on the Mount, very famous passage, the Beatitudes, Jesus talks about who's happy. But to be honest, we get the opposite of that. Jesus is very subversive and controversial in the way he talks, because the Sermon on the Mount TV talks about people who mourn, well, they're sad cases. They've got no prospects. People who are poor, well, they've got no prospects. Jesus turns that on his head and says, those are the very people who are blessed, who are happy, who are laughing. I've got one interview with a fictional PR guru who's talking about what Jesus was doing, saying how he's getting it completely wrong. He heals people, and then he says, don't tell who did it. Well, you've got to have the publicity, you've got to have the word of mouth spreading around. He doesn't set up a movement properly. He says, he gives impossible entry qualifications, like pick up your cross and follow me. That's not going to get the crowds in. So this guru is talking about how Jesus is just completely getting it wrong, which shows how much the guru doesn't understand what Jesus is actually doing. So the interview sections, I've got an interview with Barabbas, who was the terrorist who was due to be crucified, and Jesus took his place. And from him, we get the idea that the revolution is back on. He thinks he's going to be able to, have that uprising and kick out the Romans again. Of course, Jesus is talking about a different sort of liberation. I've got a diary page that Mary Magdalene writes on Easter Saturday. And the thing is, with the story, because we know the ending, because we know Jesus gets resurrected, we don't stay with that grief that the disciples had to face on the Easter Saturday. So she's looking around the room, and she's thinking, how's Peter going to go back into a boat now that he's walked on the water? How is Matthew going to go back and collect taxes for Pilate now that he's seen what Pilate's really like? And just the devastation of that, and realizing they had no idea, even though Jesus told them he was going to come back, they just didn't get it. The process of writing the book wasn't just, a holiday, a wonderful time. As the book was becoming nearly finished, I was diagnosed with the cancer that I had 5 years ago, returning. So it was a really bizarre situation of doing a book focused on this supernatural healer and being desperate for some of that for myself, and trying to deal with that whole thing of, is this going to happen? Can I finish the book in time? Is my health going to affect the way the book is finished and polished? One story that stuck out was where Jesus heals the man that was blind, but he heals him in 2 stages. And that was quite key for me, that the guy was healed a bit and he could see people, but it was all a little bit blurred. And I felt like that's where I was, and then I was hoping for a second helping, another part of the healing that was going to actually really release me into being fully fit again. And now I'm creaking a bit in my body. Painkillers keep that mostly at bay. Nights are worse. My mind and my spirit are good. So 2/3 of me is all right, and 1/3 is creaking. But I'm still holding out for some of the supernatural stuff that the book's about, hoping that can kick in again. Last time I made a remarkable recovery, and it wasn't down to the doctors, so we'll see what happens. What have we made of him? When's he going to download some of that heaven on earth? Or is that our job? Why wasn't going to church one of the 100 things to do this Easter in the Times? Why don't Christians get to tell their story more? Is Jesus the only good storyteller? Is he the liberator? What's the effect of Jesus' movement being part of the establishment now? How ironic is that? Does Jesus ever feel cramped working within an institution? Is he still the head of the church? Is he the liberator? What would he make of what we've made of him? How often do we just trip out the word Lord? Would we cut down if we knew what it meant? Is he still countercultural when it comes to money, sex and power? Is he still ranting against injustice and corruption in high places? What does he liberate from? Is he the liberator?